Good to go. All right.
And the last item is just a statement that the town will comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. And that does apply to the sidewalk project, as we'll have handicap ramps and whatnot in the project. So recommend a motion to have the mayor sign the Americans with Disabilities Act form.
Have any questions regarding the American Disabilities Act? I have a motion to approve execution of the American Disabilities Act form. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. That's it.
That's it.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the engineer's report? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Item 6, ordinance number 5, 2022, an ordinance adopting the revised and updated code of ordinances for the first reading.
Mr. Mayor and Council, brought before you tonight is ordinance 5-2022. We now have a newly updated code book, but in order to adopt this, we have to pass it on 3 readings. So brought before you tonight on first reading is an ordinance adopting and enacting the revised and updated code of the ordinances of the town of Evansville. Brought before you tonight on first reading.
Oh, I did. Sorry, I'll come right back to number 5. I'm right past it. Should I go back to 5?
Oh, sorry.
I wasn't the only one. We'll circle back before we get into that one. Number 5 was Lindsay Royce. Has a presentation for the housing of animals.
All right, I'm Lindsay Royce. I'm opening for Pet State Pet Center. It's going to be located at 2050 Fairgrounds Road, which is in the county. And it's going to be a all-inclusive pet center, nonprofit, that will include a no-kill animal shelter, 3 self-pet wash stations, and education classes such as behaviors and safe pet handling, boarding, and we are also the new home for an established pet grooming business, Happy Paws Grooming. My goal is to promote responsible pet ownership through education and high-quality services at the pet center. I will be the owner and operator. I grew up always reading dog books, learning new things about animals, shadowing the vets, all that fun stuff. I would always walk around and say, oh, that's this kind of dog, and all that fun stuff. Always taking in the stray animals and finding their homes, and I still do that quite often. And then I started volunteering for shelters and became an animal control officer in Colorado, Broomfield, Colorado, about 100,000 people there. We had about 60 calls a day, just a very high call volume. And there I really developed my education and passion for really educating the public and doing public relations work, because a lot of the problems I learned were lack of knowledge or lack of education, and people just didn't know what to do, or why their dog was doing this or that. So I just really loved doing all the public relation work and things like that. So I always had a dream of opening my own center. So now I've had an established pet services business that's been growing over the past 3 years for Pet's Sake Pet Services. And I did pet sitting and food pickup, all the fun things. And now I'm ready to expand to my center. So I reached out to the owner, and he's working with us and got this great building that has an opportunity for 101 kennels total. But we probably aren't going to utilize all of that right away. Our main focus with the rescue part of it will be foster-based, much like Black Dog, and we're working kind of with them to learn all the ins and outs and fun things like that. And so I would have, currently I have about 30 kennels that are ready, for housing. Pretty much after this weekend, by September 1st, it will all be ready. We still have to epoxy the flooring. From the photos, you can see the flooring is just concrete right now, which is fine, but for cleaning and things like that, it's much better to epoxy the flooring. So we're going to finish that this weekend. We're working on painting and making it a very happy and positive environment for customers and for the pets as well. Basically, we're just trying to make it a positive and welcoming environment that welcomes all groups of people from all walks of life to learn to be the best pet owners possible. We'll accomplish that through several classes and volunteer opportunities to the community. We are handicap accessible. We have a ramp. We'll have rails in our restrooms and things like that. My brother has Down syndrome, so he goes to Live Inspired, so they're already pumped to come help and work and get their hands in there and get going. So they'll be coming and volunteering. We just want to shelter and rescue the stray or unwanted animals, providing quality care and love, treating every pet as our own, provide low-cost spay-neuter clinics and vaccination opportunities, working with some of the local vets. We're still in talks to negotiate how that will work, if it'll be like once every few months or how often we can do that, or if there will be a few that are willing to rotate through. So we're still working on the spay-neuter portion of it. And we'll have lots of creative and positive events for the Natrona County community, fall festivals, all sorts of things like that. Let's see. I talked about the kennel space that we'll have. We're going to dedicate some of it to boarding as we get going more. I'm planning to kind of open each phase as we go along. And then we work kind of closely with Black Dog, Big Dog's Huge Paws in Colorado, Humane Society of Boulder Valley, Underdogs, Save the Giants, Great Pyrenees Rescue of Montana. I've spoke with all of them previously, just trying to find strays here, homes, and things like that. And so they're really excited about having a new opportunity in the Natrona County area for animals because we just have so many, and there's only really 2 established places right now. So it's really a huge need. So we have good networking and hope to expand our relationships with more local places as well as we grow. We're partnering with Happy Paws Grooming. They've been in business for 6+ years with over 600 clients. And all the clients are really excited to come in and help us paint and, help out where they can and get us going. So that's been fun. Like I said, we'll have all the fun volunteer opportunities. And we just hope to grow within the community and create positive relationships with different businesses and everyone throughout. The Small Business Development Center, I've worked a little bit with them just to understand more, of what the need is and all of those things. They said the need for boarding and pet services has had steady growth and is projected to expand in need about 30% from 2019 to 2024 and beyond. So just with more people moving to the area, expanding within Natrona County, everyone gets pets and not everyone knows how to care for them. And many end up, having puppies or all the fun things. And there's just a great need for it. And we'll be more than just the rescue. We'll have the self-pet wash and boarding as well, which will help to fund the rescue. So with it being nonprofit, everything will go back into the nonprofit. So we'll be able to sustain through the other business entities that we're offering as well, versus just relying on a shelter and donations and things like that. And I can offer 24/7 access through a secured gate and door. We have a locked gate that you can drive in alongside of the kennels, and then we'll have a keypad lock on the gate itself where you can access at all times to come in and put a dog into the shelter, and then just we'll be notified from our cameras that there's motion, of course, but if we're notified, hey, we put a dog in, kennel 5, fill out the kennel card, and then we will go from there as far as the stray hold and everything like that. If the dog isn't claimed, of course, after the stray hold period, we would go ahead and rehome them, provide any vet care that may be needed, most likely vaccinations and things like that. And then we would love to work with, Brandy and the animal control to offer different educational classes, maybe at the senior center or anything like that, just to, expand and let the public know, and teach kids about how to approach animals and how to be safe and just have those opportunities for the community, which would be really fun to work, alongside of them. It'll be a positive and stable environment. Our goal is really to just include the community in everything that we do. We're gonna have people come and put handprints on the walls and all that fun stuff. Just make people feel included and like it's just a really fun, positive place, so that people want to have pets and want to do their best. So basically, I put on the as far as long-term plans for the center, our building is over 6,000 square feet, and it's located on about an acre of land as well. So we are hoping in the future to offer like a doggy daycare play yard, as well as an indoor dog park and an outdoor dog park. Just because we have 8 months of winter, it would be nice to have an indoor place for the dogs to go, and maybe even people rent out, the center for a little bit if their dogs aren't super dog friendly. So we just want to, provide a lot of opportunities, positive opportunities for the community to be able to do fun things with their pets. So I put on the proposal, there's 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and 4 years contract. The longer the contract, it's less per month and less for the annual fee, just because it gives me more stability for my business. Just to know that I have, 4 years, and then we can reevaluate, see if your needs change, see if, anything's changed that we might need to talk about. And really my goal would just be to have open communication along the whole thing. If something's not working, I really just want people, Brandy or anyone to approach me and we can discuss things as we go. Because like I stated, I really just want to focus on it being a positive thing for the community as a whole. So yeah, I also provided some references and reviews and things like that in there as well for you to look at.
So Lindsay, do you own the space or are you leasing? Or?
I did a contract with the owner to lease it for 1 year, because small business development recommended that we lease for a year and then purchase it, just so that our business is established and then we can show banks and purchase the property. So that will be the goal.
Your proposal here, as you had mentioned, once the animals are surrendered, that would become your responsibility at that point in time. Is that correct?
So we would then basically the animals would become my property or in my care and control, and I would give them veterinary care, adopt them out, put them on the website, and things like that. Find a foster home if needed. It just depends on the animal's needs. Some animals get really anxious in kennels and need a home environment. Things like that.
So I assume with that prior to that relinquish period, the town would pay for any medical bills that would come up.
Really, how I've experienced things in the past with doing animal control, unless there's a very emergent thing, if a dog has a, procedure needed in the future, then obviously we can wait until, the stray hold is up. If it's something super emergent, if the dog got hit by a car, needs emergency surgery, that would still fall for you guys just because it's under your care. If it can be stabilized and then wait, the stray hold, things like that.
And sorry, monopolizing this. Does that have any number of animals included?
No, we will have plenty of kennel space. Like I said, I don't imagine that between fosters and having the kennel space, we won't be limited as far as the number of animals that can be brought in. And I would just ask that you guys would collect the impound fee and things like that just from working as an animal control officer. I know if the officer needs to speak to the owner, it's much easier if they come pay the impound fee and meet with the officer versus me, and then they never catch them or never talk to them again. So I think if you guys can collect the impound fee and then they can bring their receipt and I can relinquish the animal, that would be best.
Council, have any questions for Lindsay? All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Real quick, I just want to make a comment, not a real question, but I did have a member of the Black Dog Rescue call me and said that you were very reliable and trustworthy, and this is a person that I know is very trustworthy and very animal loving, so she definitely spoke highly of you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. right, now back to number 6. Ordinance number 5, 2022.
Sorry, I'm just excited about this. This has been a
Absolutely.
project. Our code book, we are literally working out of 2 books right now, and it's very confusing for the residents. But once this is adopted, then this will be put on the website for people to access this code book. So it's brought before you tonight for first reading.
Any questions regarding ordinance number 5, 2022? Motion to approve ordinance number 5, just 2022.
Motion that.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Item 7, ordinance number 6, 2022, an ordinance amending chapter 13-27 of the trailer parking public discussion to be held. Before we open up into the public discussion, I just want to let everybody know that we did hold a work session on Monday night to discuss these issues. We've heard from everybody on multiple open public hearings. We had 2 last year, 1 this year, as well as after our last meeting. I know I've been contacted by many residents, I think several of the other members, as well as Chief Thompson. We started the meeting off with what you're going to see tonight, with an addition of basically an exemption that would allow trailers between May 15th and September 15th. That portion was removed in the final ordinance you're seeing tonight. But we're here to receive public comments and listen to your thoughts and suggestions. I know this is a hot button topic, and it seems like everybody's either far on one side or the other. There's few in the middle with this. It was even a topic of discussion at my luncheon today with the senior center. So we understand everybody's very passionate about this. One thing I would like to do tonight is bring a little order back into this. So everybody's going to have an opportunity to speak. I would ask that you approach the lectern, give your name and your address, and then make your comments. And please stay after your comments are finished. We'll ask council if they have any questions or comments for you. And then you can return to your seat and the next person. So with that being said, we'll open it up to public comments. May have any public comments regarding the trailer ordinance? Absolutely.
Yeah, my name is Levi Sammons, that's 632. I'd like to address that issue. You know, a lot of people have problems with it. You know, one side or the other, like you said. The streets in the town are very narrow. Everybody knows that. But I think changing ordinance from 7 days to 48 hours is kind of extreme. Personally, we picked this area of Main Street years ago because there was no HOA, no rules on it, we can put there. Granted, you have to, you just have to, there's definitely a lot of rules I feel like that kind of go by the wayside on a lot of properties. But it's like, that would be better. I think there's some dimensions to that. But, I know a lot of people can take advantage of the trailer thing. They leave their trailers out for months at a time, shopping food and everything. But I know a lot of people use it during the summer months for legal camping a lot, so they have 3 or 4 days of loading and unloading and cleaning stuff up before they can get the trailer back to their storage facility or wherever they keep it. I think you should be able to contain your trailers and vehicles either on your property or on your property. I think if you're parking a trailer undished on somebody else's property like 48 hours or even shorter than that, there's an appropriate timeline to get it moved. I've had people park trailers in front of place. Usually it's asked, hey, is it all going to do this here for them? Sometimes it's better if it is, and it shows up there. That can be annoying for sure. But I think 48 hours not on your property is appropriate, but like 7 days, if it's directly in front of your own property, I feel like that's an appropriate timeline for people that own recreational trailers, or even if they have trailers for personal work, or if it's self-employed, or if they have company trailers that they utilize daily, but are not even on hitching, and my opinion on that, I guess.
Questions, comments, council?
Thank you for starters, for coming up here and approaching us. And this is where I think, a lot of people are going to get kind of confused a little bit. The previous ordinance was 7 days in a 30-day period. We eliminated the 30-day period and was going to do 48. It just has to be removed for 48, and then you can go another 48. So in theory, with basically, you go on a Friday night, you load up 2 days, you go out on a Friday night, and you're camping for a couple days, then you're back on the street for a couple days. It's one of those things where it kind of balanced it out a little bit, because we do have, strong left, strong right, comments. And by doing it this way, in theory, you actually get more days in a month than what the current ordinance is actually at.
So it's gotta be, you can be unhinged in front of your house for 48 hours.
Sure.
Sure.
True. The 48 hours is the loading, the loading and unloading, and it has to be removed for 48 hours. So basically, it just can't be stagnant. It can't be just sitting there. And then for people that
How far is
it has to be moved, Chief Thompson would be able to. It can't be just moved around the block. It has to be removed for 48
it? I
hours.
hate to see that. People say,
Yeah.
okay, how they move
Well, and that's why we
three
put the
houses
48
down,
hours
you
on.
move 48 hours, you move 3 houses down, and you put 48 hours.
Sure.
I don't want that to happen either. Let that happen.
Well, in the ordinance also, it says that it needs to be parked in front of your house. So if it's not in front of your house and parked down the street, then, then that's it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's where that's at. I mean, so it's not just a strict 48 hours, it's a strict 40 hours, then you have to move it for 48 hours. And that gives everybody plenty of time to, in theory, to load, unload. When they come back from camping from a nice long weekend, they can have another 48 hours to unload.
I guess my concern is if getting back on a late Sunday night, you don't have a chance to clean up, or do whatever you need to do. So maybe Wednesday, you're working the next weekend. So some people will run into that, and even some of the older people that live in the area, like, sometimes it takes some time. I feel like I'm not on one side or the other. I feel like I'm kind of in the middle, but I'm working 48 hours. For a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Any other comments? Appreciate you coming up. I did forget to mention throughout this that not only the time it's out there, but throughout all the public comments, we've heard a lot of people express issues for parking in front of your house, blocking the sidewalks, how far you should be away from the curb. So beyond just the time, there's a lot of those components that all went into this ordinance to try to address all the issues that were brought up meeting after meeting. And this is the time if somebody's also got thoughts or even this can be amended in any way, shape, or form. So it's here for you to present that to us. One of the things, just as an example, an idea I'd come up with after our last meeting is if we stick with the 48-hour period, perhaps there's something that could be done where a no-cost permit would be given out from the town if your neighbors approve of your trailer being parked out there, which would help some of that time. So just an example of some of the things that we can come up with to adjust this throughout the next 3 readings. So nothing is set in stone yet.
I think the homes incurred, I think that's.
Thank you. Additional public comments.
Steve Crone, 1060 Park Lane, Evansville, Wyoming. Also running for mayor. Any code that supersedes the state law will cause civil unrest. If it's licensed, the state law says you can park it on the road. I understand neighbors don't want it in front of their house. Park it in front of your house. If it is a safety, shouldn't the parents teach their kids not to play in the street? Simple as that. Why are we wasting all this time, money, and effort arguing over someone's property? When the Article 1, Section 7, no absolute and arbitrary power. You guys gather together, absolute and arbitrary power, you're writing a law over the lives, liberty, and their trailers, which are property of the free men, doesn't exist in this republic that we all just swore an oath or swore the pledge to the republic for which it stands. Why are we plotting against our fellow Americans?
You do understand that this is trying to address an ordinance been on the books for 40 plus years.
And we have no problem until the town planners and you guys signed off on a street that was way too skinny. Right?
I think 40 years ago, we didn't have the same vehicles we had. They're a lot narrower.
And I understand that too, but these people work hard for their property. It is their property. Okay? Now, like Mr. Roberts said in the last comment, we have land. Let them park there. You just said a free parking permit. Let them park. Put up a camera.
You're talking on town property?
Sure.
Well, we're pretty limited on town property. I know somebody's brought that up in the past. And we also have to be extremely careful of competing with private industry. I'm sure if we were to open up a free parking lot that Sonny is over here, who just created an RV parking lot, might take offense to that.
Yeah, but competition is ensuring it's not a monopoly.
Well, I don't know about the rest of council, but myself, I don't think the town wants to get into the trailer parking business.
It's not. It's helping a neighbor. It's helping your fellow Americans store their stuff in a safe place so everybody else isn't inconvenienced.
So Steve, what I hear you saying is, sir, hi. What I hear you saying is that your suggestion would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, your suggestion would be either let people park in front of their property, in front of their house because it's their property.
If it is plated,
If it is plated, yes. And then the other suggestion I heard you say was, or have people be able to park in a designated area in Evansville.
cool.
Was there anything else I missed? I just want to make sure that I'm writing down all your suggestions and your thoughts.
I mean, if it is about the safety of children, okay, is that what we all decided in the last one? Kids
That's
were
one of
gonna
the
run out
areas.
from behind it and get hit. We're already at 20 miles an hour. Okay? If people are going way over 20, isn't that the chief of police's job to stop that? That ain't our job. They're breaking the law. They're endangering. Correct? We passed it a long time ago because somebody got hit on copper, a little kid. Everybody agreed, 20 mile an hour. You can stop if you're not on your cell phone. They passed no hands free, right? Well, I see it all over. My brother died from a text, be there in a minute, and the guy pulled out in front of him on a bike. Okay? That needs to be addressed.
But what I heard you saying tonight is, the two suggestions would be, you need to park in the area, or you allow to have people have their campers, recreation, and stuff.
Okay, either that or let's just go full dictatorship and say no campers at all. The public's aren't gonna stand for that either. I mean, we gotta get along. We have to work together, okay? These people got a lot of money in them campers. They don't want it stored somewhere else. They want it where they can keep an eye on it, okay? If the street's too skinny, whose fault is that? Is it theirs for buying the property? Buyer's remorse, now everybody's mad? It's not on us. Why does the rest of the town have to suffer?
And I think with this, from this, revising ordinance, we're trying a happy medium so that it.
Yeah, but just like the one guy said in the last thing, I'll just go buy a bigger motorhome. Now it's still the same. Kids running out. That was the whole thing about safety. That's what I agree with. Safety of the children. But if he's all mad, oh, because it's a trailer, I'll just buy a motorhome. Put the plate on it. Now we fix nothing.
I think the ordinance does, actually, address the motorhomes as well.
Well, and then we're superseding state law and upsetting the public again.
And I don't think that we are technically, because this is Evansville's town, and we, the people, are the ones that make the ordinance and laws, and that's why we do have an amazing attorney.
And that's what I'm hearing. I've actually went out and talked to public, and it's my property. I should be able to put on my property what I want to put on my property.
But they are public streets.
And I understand that too. State law says if it's plated.
Correct.
So then going back, so we've got property being put in front of people's homes, parking in a designated area, or no campers at all. So we have 3 suggestions from you, sir.
Well,
Correct?
go ahead and take the no campers at all because that ain't gonna pass anybody's opinion.
I will cross that out just because you
Okay?
told me to cross it out.
It was an option, you know.
I know,
Yeah,
I mean, it is an
it's an
option.
option, but we wanna make sure that we're listening to your
But
options.
we can't take freedoms and liberties away from our fellow Americans.
You know, and that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to change the ordinance to where it benefits both the ones that do have campers and the ones that don't have campers, because we do have quite a few people, quite a few Americans that live in Evansville.
Okay, so.
And so that's the reason why we have to balance it a little bit. We can't just go one side or the other, because if we do, yes, we are gonna be upsetting certain individuals. And if we go, you know, the other way, we're gonna be upsetting those other ones. So that's the
Okay,
reason why
so
we're
my
in a
last
balance.
question is, how many more officers do we have to hire to enforce this 48 hours?
I think there are certain numbers that we have to have in our town to be able to, have more officers as well as.
And this was actually your question, it's not from that there. Your very question is actually a question that all of us up here ended up talking about. The reality is was enforcement. Enforcement of a very large population numbers. So, can you please explain to the residents how many officers we actually have to get on the force in order to be able to address that issue? Because we were discussing that issue for 3 hours.
So, in the enforcement thing, if you want an effective enforcement in time, because some people want us to look at trailer enforcement like we look at traffic and traffic. So somebody's going at the speed limit. If I had probably one more code enforcement person that lightens the load, not to address that. The ordinance proposal is I was asked to draft for you, also made suggestions complaint-based from the public. So we can't be everywhere all the time in the time. So the best way to get along in the community or work together, I hear that a lot from people, is public interacting and communicating. So if there's a complaint, call the dispatch center, make the complaint so that we can target those particular complaints, because some places it might be more problematic than others. So one of the things I'm going to address, Steve brought up about creating ordinances and state statute. In state statute Title 15, it gives the town's authority to create ordinances on state statutes. So every community in the state of Wyoming has some version of trailer enforcement. Some have similar to what we have now, And some have, and those aren't necessarily proactive enforcement. Some have the time frame where trailers can be here from there because in their community, their sociological makeup is how we, Evansville, do things is different than, say, Powell, Wyoming, and Thermopolis, because they have a different culture there, and a different style of how they want to live. So you guys have the ultimate toughest decision from the public in dealing with this stuff. So as far as enforcement, either get an extra person, I think one is enough for enforcement, or leave this complaint-based, and or if the officers see it as a direct safety issue, is the simplest part of enforcement.
Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but as you proposed, this was in that regard of complaint-based, and you wouldn't require any additional officers for that.
That was the idea in listening to comments, that the public, discussion with council, and then being asked to draft it. You gotta have a start point, somewhere to work with something. So again, complete draft, so put all everybody in here. It is important that you give these guys suggestions and comments, because just like the legislature, how many of you here are with the legislature in Washington State statute? Okay? So they have what they call bills, and this is formatted just like a bill, and they have structured conversation that work back and forth, and they strike words, they add words, they change language, and you're doing the exact process here, just on a local level.
Thank you, Chief.
So just one additional ordinance out.
Ed,
Okay, thank you, sir. I think if we all just came together, the neighbor went up to the guy, hey, can you move that back in front of your house? And the neighbors, I mean, I grew up here, been here almost 50 years. 48 years I've lived here. We've never had these problems. And I understand that the trailers are getting a little bigger. Oh, and the streets got smaller because they were maximizing the amount of houses they could put in that little development. That's what happened. Okay? They built it on a floodplain, correct?
What are you,
Built it on a floodplain.
you talking about the new subdivision?
Development down there. That's where all these, the streets are too skinny. That's where all these complaints are coming from. That's what I'm hearing from the town.
I believe they're talking, a lot of the complaints are talking about the older part of Evansville.
I've had no complaints on Park Lane or Fifth Street that I know of. I've talked to a lot of people in the mobile home park. I have talked to the people in the new development. They're in the little circles where it cuts off. Yeah, that's where the streets are skinny, and that's where.
Have you driven down Curtis right by the, before the second stop sign, not this first one, but the second one? It's real narrow there.
How many complaints? How many trailers were actually on?
I don't have privilege to that information that you dispatched them. Sorry.
Then I can't give you an educated guess to like that. Okay? I'll do that tonight on the way home. Give you my word. I think if we all just stopped the oppressive government and went back to people helping people. That's how Evansville was. That's why a lot of people moved here. Everybody I'm talking to said, I want a small town. I hear from you guys, develop, develop, develop. Are you talking to the public? And okay, who are these people that want all this development? I need to go talk to them. I need to ask. Because I'm not hearing it.
So Steve, I will actually address that. So since I have been on council, and I really want every resident in this room to hear me say this, since I have been on council, this has been the only hot topic button that I have seen a room full of residents sit at since I have been on council for the last 2 years. And I feel like the council can contest that. So what I'm saying with my comment is this is actually what we need from the residents. We need you guys to show up. We need for you guys to have a voice. we need for people to show up more for just trailers and campers and RVs, because when it comes down to it, when we don't have the residents showing up, then it is going to be a handful of people making those choices and decisions. So with that being said, I just want to make that clear that since I've been sitting up here on this seat, this has been the only hot topic button that has come up. And I will tell you, there has been 500 other things that were way more important in this discussion. And I'm sorry that I'm going to be really full focused on that piece. There have been 500 other things that we've had to deal with: development, changing things, planning, coordinating, things like that. And I have not seen residents show up for those topics of discussion either. So what I'm saying is, I think that it's good that people are showing up and they are taking notice to the things that are happening. But I will say, in my humble opinion, I will say that when we are making choices and decisions, sometimes we are making choices and decisions based off of not a lot of resident input, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
I feel like I can say that because I feel like this has been the
all
only
I can
discussion
say
that
to
we've
that
been
is-
at.
We elected you under the trust you would look after us.
Absolutely. That is the absolute goal. I don't disagree with anything that you just said a second ago. I'm up for reelection myself at this point, and I mean, everybody's probably seen the numbers and things like that, and at least I can speak for me. I can't speak for anybody on council, and I definitely will not. But what I will say is we need more resident involvement if we're wanting to keep things small town mentality, and we're wanting to keep things the way they are, and we're wanting to move into a direction. We need more involvement from the residents, not just with the trailer ordinance. We need more discussion beyond that, in case new people start showing up.
Tried to get 3 or 4 people to come tonight. Okay? Okay, then my suggestion would be, if you need more public in here, we go to Saturdays at a different time. The time at night with my neighbor, I just got out of the truck, I've been going for 12 hours, I'm going to sleep. Okay? That's a lot of us work.
And I entirely
Let's
understand
change
it.
the town council meeting to Saturday, 1 o'clock. After
So
lunch.
we will absolutely put that on the list. We'll absolutely put that on the list, but going back to the trailer piece, so what I've heard you say, sir, is property in front of your home, parking in a designated area. We had no campers at all, but you had us strike that out. And then there was the discussion about enforcement, and that's when we had Chief Thompson come up, correct?
Right.
I just want to make sure that I'm following, because I know that there are several other people that want to chat as well. Did I mishear anything that you were talking about?
Ordinances upon ordinances upon ordinances. From the public comments I'm getting, they're telling me oppressive government. Progressive government has never worked. Ever worked. History. We all went to history class, didn't we?
Last time I checked in the 10 years that I went to college, sir, yes, I did go through all the history and the government
So
classes in 10
I'm
years, yes.
speaking the truth, right? Progressive governments never worked.
I don't think that anybody is disagreeing with you, but what I'm saying is I hear you, I genuinely see you, sir.
For the safety of the kids, okay? I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But to dictate command and command, when I can park, when I can't, you're gonna get a ticket. So the president.
Steve, I think we're here to try to address that. Like I said,
That's what I'm saying.
the existing
We're
ordinance,
looking at it as
yes.
hurricanes, and we wanna get along, we need to figure out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you, Steve. for
Thank you.
coming.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, ma'am.
I was curious if we did have a time limit.
We didn't set one up in the beginning, but
Yes. In the future, I would like the time limits of some sort to be set and nice. So I do, in your guys' ordinance that you were doing, I do think a lot of this is really good, keeping it 25 feet back, no in front of the hazardous. I'm still not quite on the page of the 48-hour. I don't know, I personally, I'd like to see that go away and let you have your trailers anytime you paid your part, you paid your title, you paid all of your stuff on it, it's legal, street legal. I'd like to see it, we have a small town. We don't have a big town. Let's keep it that small town. Just get rid of that, letting you just have it. Whenever you need it, you can have it. I do like the fact that it's 25 feet back and you are taking care of like, all right, don't have your pop-ets out all the time. Have it only when you're unloading and loading. So I do like a lot of it. But just, we have a small town. We don't really have that many trailers to make it such a big deal. Just get rid of that part, like the trailers have it whenever you need it. We have a small town, let's keep it a small town. We don't need to have that part in there. I like where it's all about keeping it back and safety and all this other stuff, that's great, but why not let you just have your camper in front of your damn house? I mean, you paid for it, you paid your taxes, you paid all your other stuff, why not have it? I like a lot of the other things, that part is great with the ordinance. I mean, that part should be asked of like, if you wanna have it, you gotta have it certain ways. I think those are really great things, but not have a time limit, take that out.
Questions?
Yes, ma'am. Can we get your name?
Alana, I'm sorry. Alana Vino, I live on Holmes. Any other questions?
Yes.
Would you like us to like go through next time of like line by line of like what kind of a thing for like next reading? Or
I think the general comments of
general consensus of,
Yeah.
hey, I like this idea, but
any ideas you've got, like you brought up tonight, any ideas you've got that you'd like to see changed in it. I think that really helps us as we're going
getting
forth.
rid of the time in general. We pay your taxes, we have a small town, there's really not that many. A lot of people anyways, we're gonna still put it in a parking spot over winter, you don't want it on the street. But having it, if you're gonna have a park there, have a park safely in a safe manner, not blocking sidewalks and that kind of stuff. I mean, there is a spot in there with the power cords going across it. I think, if you have if it is plugged in, which a lot of times you gotta have it plugged in a couple days before you take off, it needs cooled down and your battery's charged up, or you're gonna have your power cord running across. So if you do have your power cord, can you just have like a cover over the top of it, or just not exceed a certain height or something like that, of just being able to have your power cord? I can see not having obviously your sewer cords, your pop outs, because those are big, but a power cord, I got bigger sticks that we go over and on our sidewalks than the power cords. So, that could be taken out. It's really, most of the time they're no bigger than, well, a little bit bigger than enough, but not much bigger. So, that could be taken out.
Yeah.
I know within talking with you outside of the meeting about the complaint-driven piece, I know that that's something that we talked about in the work session, and I know that you watched the work session. What are your thoughts on the complaint-driven?
I don't necessarily, I think it is really a waste of our code enforcement officers' time to walk around and be like, let's mark tires. I think that's ridiculous. They got better things to do, officers have better things to do than go around and mark tires on campers. That's why I said, get rid of the time thing. Yes, if there's a safety issue, then have it be a safety issue. But having it parked in front of my house is not a safety issue. It's not. And so it's one of those that, if it's a complaint driven where, yeah, it's bothering my neighbors or something like that, like it's blocking their driveway or they're having a hard time backing up because they can't see, okay, having a complaint driven, okay, well, maybe I need to move it more closer to my house so they can see easier. That good neighbor kind of concept. I don't mind that complaint driven, but at the same time, complaint driven if it's a safety issue. But to have our officers going around, oh, let's mark some tires, I guarantee you we got better things to do than do that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much.
Hello, it's Tim Brown, 22nd Street. Just wanted to say, left the last general council meeting and felt like I was heard. Saw the work session and, oh my gosh. I saw how you got to the middle, but that's not where I was thinking this was headed at all. Most accurate thing that I thought was said in that work session was when Mike Thompson said, I got bigger stuff to worry about. I got DUIs, I got drug enforcement to worry about. We spent way too much time on this. And all I'm looking for is a legal way where I don't have to worry about Evansville being like, okay, gosh, is it 2 days because of Evansville I have to move it? Oh yeah, we went camping last weekend, but my paychecks, what day? No, this is too much. Okay. I need you guys to go one way or the other, make a decision. But this whole changing up from 2 hours to 24, you've got me confused. And I look at sine waves of energy for my profession. I look at numbers. Okay, so this is too much. Okay, I need it simpler. I either need it gone, or like, I just really need it gone. Like, I don't need to be worried about what Evansville's doing. I want you to know that I'm already legally I'm already tagged in many group chats because of how many citizens this is pissing off about figuring out a way to legally and peacefully protest this. So this is going on in the background. Don't know where that's headed. I'm not mad, but I just want to let you guys know as city council it's pissing off a lot of us. So I just want to be left alone. And if that means, hey, pay your taxes, license your car, park it between these 2 points, but changing it up on me, you're asking me to hit a moving target. Don't give me a moving target. Give me one way so I can be a good citizen in this town, so I can help move the town forward. We do a lot of giving back to the community. Like, don't make this messy. I need this to either go away or have a very simplistic, this is what we're doing. Free permitting. Sounded great. Give me a solution on that, but it does not need to be rocket science. Okay? Thank you.
I'm Phil Gerke and I live on Eagle Trail. Just real quick, I'm not gonna take that long. I commend you guys on at least coming up with some kind of a compromise. And I guess my big deal is enforcement. If it can't be enforced, nothing does any good. However, on the other side of the coin, 99 and 9/10% of the people, if they know what the rules are, they're gonna follow them. It's the other 1/10 of 1%. So I guess I don't understand the enforcement part, because I'm gonna have to bet it's the same people over and over and over again, okay? And just one other point, and I could be mistaken, and if I am, I stand corrected, but I don't think the street is your personal property. I think your personal property actually ends before you even get to the sidewalk, but you're responsible for cleaning the sidewalk. So, when people talk about that street is my property, no, it's not. It's public property. Okay, that's all.
Don Patton on Missouri Street. I have to say that I like at least you guys are trying to come to a compromise of 48 hours and 48 hours and forgetting the 30. Because if you're taking your camper a lot during the summer, like a lot of people are. And a guy said last time, that he goes quite frequently. Well, you can't be taking it in and out of storage all the time. That's kind of a pain for them, and especially if they have to bring it out, which I store mine. So I pay for that, and I pay my taxes, pay my plates, all that stuff, and it's insured. And if it's all insured and you pay your plates and stuff, that gives you the right to have it on the street at one point in time. But I agree that, it needs to be probably out of the way when they do snow or whatever. And, but enforcing it, I think that's kind of a waste of time unless you go down there and you see the same trailer there for years almost, then that may be a problem. Because I do know of some that's there. But most, like he said, most people, if they know the rules, then they'll abide by. And we'll use them and put them away when we're not using them for any length of period. But if you're going to use it the next weekend and you come home, and maybe you come home and in the wintertime and you got a big storm, well, it's kind of hard to unload the thing and do that when you can't even hardly walk through the thing, the snow. So you may be another day, but of course, most of us don't like to pull them in the snow anyway. But that's pretty much my thing. At least I'm glad to see that maybe the 30-day thing is not there. 48 hours for older people, that's a little tougher. I don't have a dozen kids to help me unload and that. It's pretty much all me. So, thank you. Any
Questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I'm Darren Steinhaus, 326 Missouri. There's several people in here that live on Missouri. You guys know my camper. It's parked there all summer long. I get off Thursday night, I hook on that camper, it leaves. It's gone Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It comes home Sunday. I get up usually at 4:30 in the morning, Monday morning, and I'm out of town. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Come home Thursday. I haven't been out camping the last 3 weeks. Where's my camper? Parked in my parking spot. It's not on the street. But you're 48 and 48, that don't work for me. It doesn't work for a lot of people that work out of town. I get home from camping, I don't want to jump out there and clean the whole camper out. And my wife can't move the camper. My company truck is let we pull it. I mean, if you want to make a 48-hour rule, say it has to be moved for 48 hours in a 7-day period. That'd be my suggestion to your 48 deal. But I'm with most people in here that said, just get rid of it. Or make it the May to September deal. And I'm not going to take up a bunch of you guys' time. If you have any questions,
Any questions, comments? Thank you very much. Appreciate your input.
Want to add one more thing that I said to around 32nd Street. So I also heard during the work session, you guys said business licenses could get exempt and whatnot. To me, that just sounds like legal for a price. And you're damn right, I'll pay the price to do whatever I got to do to live free. And what's going on around my property is expected. So if you're going to make a loophole as to, well, we got to file a permit for a business license and all that, I mean, it's not everybody's option, but it's my option. I'll go file the right LLC paperwork. I'll make it just to park. I can't permit. So I just wanted to let you know, like, the legal avenue is what we got to take, but that's just more taxation. And it will be for that one purpose. So please just take that into consideration too. Like, this just needs to go away.
Any other public comments? Public comments? All right. Council discussion.
I mean, I think anybody that watched the 3-hour work session knew exactly where I stood, at least on this. I feel like I made myself fairly clear with that, but if anybody didn't watch that 3-hour lengthy discussion that we had, I am of the opinion that if we are unable to enforce an ordinance, do we need to be having the ordinance? And I understand that that's not a popular opinion, or maybe it is, and that's fine. But a lot of that discussion in the work session was around enforcement. Because if it was around safety, we were talking about that a little over a year ago in terms of safety. And I live on a street where there's big, huge campers. And I mean, our street's a little bit bigger, but I live on a street that has big, huge campers as well. And those people on my street that have the big, huge campers, they are older people. So I liked what some of you had said about some people are not going to be able to have the time. Some of us don't have children or have relatives or have people that are living with us, so it's gonna take a lot longer than the 48-hour period. My thought on this is, on my street as well, there are lots of children who run out in my street, and whether I'm in a camper, or I'm in a large vehicle, or I'm in my truck. I mean, I'm a short gal, so I drive a big truck, so, you know, I mean, I can see over the steering wheel and everything, but, but what I'm saying is that whether it's a camper or recreational vehicle, those kids are darting out in front of the street, whether it's a camper or recreational vehicle or my truck. So, yes, I do think, yes, from a safety standpoint, I see it both sides of the safety piece of, yes, parents should be knowing where their children are at. I get that. But I also see on my street where those parents are out there with their kids and they're turning around, but they've got like 2 or 3 other children that are also running around as well. And, you know, you can't be everywhere all at once. So I get the safety side of it and I get the enforcement side of it. But I'm standing pretty firm in my thought processing that if we could enforce something, that would be different than if we can't enforce something. And in my mind, in terms of this, I'm pretty black and white when it comes to that. Either we can enforce it or we can't, because in the work session, and you know, I will say hands down to Chief Thompson, because he was calling people and messaging people and talking with people, and I feel like he had done an obscene amount of research with other towns and other areas to try to figure out a compromise for this. And yes, I am of the opinion myself that if we can't enforce it, do we need to have it? Because the only 2 things in my mind that have ever been on my mind is safety and enforcement. So I know that in the work session that not everybody agreed with me, and that's absolutely fine, because this is not an emotional reaction on my end, but I hear what everyone is saying, and I think that we're trying to come to a compromise, but I think that this goes back to that idea that we're not going to be able to appease everyone. We're sure trying. I promise you guys, we are absolutely trying to figure this out, but that's at least where I stand at this moment in time, is that if we can't enforce it, do we need to have it? Because in one of the prior meetings, Chief Thompson said, and Chief, you correct me if I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, I will take full ownership for that. There were 24 campers. 12. Excuse me, sir, I tried to double that. So I retract my former statement. There were 12 campers that were in Evansville currently that were big enough to where we were talking about.
So the current ordinance only deals with camper and tow. In total, there was 24 trailers, the whole only 12 at that time.
And that wasn't too long ago, right? That was,
3 months ago.
yeah, that wasn't that long ago. So I just, like, I'm a numbers person, and I'm a logical and analytical thinker, and I'm not an emotional person in terms of this. So that's where my mind goes with the enforcement piece of me making my thoughts and opinions known. So I'm thinking about 24 vehicles that we're trying to wrap our mind around. So I don't know where everyone else stands on council, but that's at least my thought is I keep going back to that enforcement piece of, obviously Chief Thompson has 500 other thousand things that he could be doing that are super important that are not going to be in reference to this, but I'll let you all talk. I am duly ready and open with a non-emotionally reactive thought processing to hear my fellow people.
One of my, concerns is the enforcement also. I agree but disagree with, what Councilwoman, Machado said, if we can't, have it, or if we can't enforce it, we can't, we should just get rid of it. Unfortunately, if it's not on the books, if it's not an ordinance though, then we can't enforce it. So that's the reason why we want to work with everybody and work with, your guys' comments, work with all your different ideas of making it fair. That was one of the reasons why getting rid of that 30-day period was, cut that out of the way, because the police department does not have time to go chalk every tire on all these trailers due to the fact that they do have a lot more time, or they have a lot more things to do than going around there chalking tires, and same way with the code enforcement officer. But working with Chief Thompson during the work session, he agreed also, correct me if I'm wrong, that this would be a lot easier to manage, because in their computer system, they can also log when they make contact with a trailer, and then if another officer makes contact, or a complaint-driven contact with these individuals, they can go back and see when that complaint occurred. But having the 48 hours, I've been listening to everybody today. That is something that we can possibly work with to load and unload. But the reason why we came up with that decision is because it gives you 2 full days to unload and 2 full days to load. My biggest thing about getting rid of the whole thing in general is we need to have accountability. A lot of people, this is one of the reasons why I moved to Evansville, is because it is a small town. Okay, I don't want that small town feeling. But what I think is common sense is something different than everybody else in this room. Okay? We might think we can all get along, but there's going to be those people that are not going to be able to agree on certain things. And if you have a trailer parked in front of their house and somebody complains about it, that neighbor's not going to just automatically just move it just because their neighbor asked them to do it. And so having some kind of ordinance on the books is, in my opinion, necessary because of that.
So keeping the complaint-driven piece, but looking at the 48-hour window. Is that what you're using? I maybe didn't make that super
No,
clear.
what I'm saying is it needs to be on the books. I mean, we can work with that 48 hours. I mean, if it needs to be, less, more, I mean, it's definitely not going to be less because it doesn't sound like it. But the thing about it though too is if we're going to do it more, I mean, we're already given 4 days within a week right now, and there's only 7 days in the week. And so that is the reason why, if you load it up for 2 days, move it for 2 days, and then unload it for 2 days, that's 6 days out of a 7-day week. And so if we do any more hours, then that's going to take away from there. And that's where that complaint-driven enforcement is going to come into effect. Okay, that doesn't mean that you're going to be you might be in violation of the ordinance, but are you going to get a citation? That's going to be up to your neighbors. Okay, that's going to be a complaint-driven. But law enforcement can't enforce something if it's not on the books. So if you're working the 3 days or the 4 days and then you're going camping and you need that extra day, that's a complaint-driven issue right there. And that is what Chief Thompson and what everybody has been saying is that's the enforcement that we're getting. Until we can get more manpower on the police department, unfortunately we are shorthanded for our growing town right now, then these complaints are going to be strictly complaint-driven.
Yes, the way this is written is primarily complaint driven, barring an officer or someone coming in and seeing a safety issue or something like that effect. Two trailers parked side by side, things like that. I'm going to go ahead and throw out my stance here in this point. I'll tell you, I've been a resident of Evansville for 24 years. We've trailer owners ourselves. Early on, and when we lived here, my wife said, "Oh, you can't put the trailer on the street." And I said, "Baloney, this is Evansville. We can do those things." Lo and behold, I was incorrect. This rule has been on the books before 1982. We don't know when, but it's been on there for a long time. There was a complaint, which is what brought this forward. I understand everybody's thoughts here, and I am sympathetic to that. I know it takes a lot of time and effort to get your trailer ready and move it around. Why I was a proponent of the exemption period, the May to September, because it does two things: allows people time to use their trailer, as well as it addresses the enforcement issue. Our code enforcement officer, our police officers are not performing those enforcement issues for those 4 months. So I was a proponent of that for those reasons. Now, on the same token, I will say that I know a lot of people here were looking at getting rid of the ordinance, wanted going away. The primary thing I have heard since we started this from a lot of the people on the other side is, most of my neighbors are really good. I talk to them, they move. I don't have really problem with trailers, but don't make it go away. Trailer can't be there forever. So that's a big thing that I heard from a lot of the people out there. And I think that's one of the things we were trying to look at, addressing an ordinance that's been on the books for 40 years and trying to make it better, find a compromise that people can live with. So that's just my position, my opinion. So.
I feel like we went from 7 days to 48 hours, and most of the people that have talked about doing a May to September or getting rid of it weren't even heard, and nobody has talked about for it. Nobody has come up to the podium in the last 2 or 3 meetings and said, "No, I want this. I think we should have this kind of ordinance of what the hours or the amount of days." So I feel like as a majority, we've proposed a May to September. I understand we can't get rid of it altogether, but I believe that we went from 7 days to 48 hours on the hopscotching over the amount of time, and the majority wasn't even heard.
Well, understand that the 48-hour thing, really, if you go and look at it, the ordinance before was 7 days in a 30-day period. So out of 30 days, you were allowed your trailer on the street for 7 days legally. The 48-hour thing, 48 on, 48 off, actually technically means you can have your trailer on the street for 15 days out of a 30-day period. So it actually does drastically increase where we started with here. So just to throw that out there.
Not for people that aren't in town during the week. Not everybody works in town. Not everybody, like this gentleman over here, can get it done in 2 days. And I understand the complaint driven. The complaint driven was this whole thing started because it was about my camper. And that's what a lot of us have been pointing is now we're going to be a target of and being the only one that somebody is complaining about. That's where this whole thing started.
The good thing about it is when it's a complaint driven, the officers still have discretion. So state statute says that an officer has the ability to have discretion, with any call that they go on. So when it comes down to it, if an officer comes to your house and they believe that your neighbor is targeting you as a victim or as somebody that's breaking the law, and you're a victim of that, then that's up to the officer to write you that citation. That officer does not have to write you the citation every time you get a complaint on. So when it comes down to the complaint driven, you also have to consider in the discretion of the officer's ability too.
Steve?
If it is a safety issue and 20 mile an hour is not cutting it, let's drop it to 5. 5 mile an hour the whole town. That's safer. can't stop at 5 miles an hour. And then you can, all those tickets to police for crime.
Yes, Mr.
I
Goodman.
think I'd just be sure to pick my Negro off
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir, in the back.
Hey, so it's all about this complaint that everybody's got lying. Why are we all complaining? That if he's my neighbor, he's my neighbor, she's my neighbor, he's my neighbor, we all live on the same block. And why not step out and go up and knock on the door? If their trailer's out front, you have to move it for 4 days, 7 days, 8 days, a month, whatever. Go up, knock on the door, ask them what's going on. Say, hey, I got a truck. Do we need to move it? You know, what's going on? Do we have to put gloves on and do we have to clean? Because where I live now, I live on top of my house. And my neighbors, I get out there almost every day. I'm trying to put gloves on and help them do their deed. And every day after I do a good deed, I feel like I'm an American. I'm like, well, now my neighbors are in pain. You know, my elderly down the street, she couldn't get out and mow her yard, and her daughter was working 7 days a week. I walked out there, seen her out there pulling leaves. I walked out and I said, ma'am, stop what you're doing right there. She said, why? I said, I'll be back with my weed eater. And she says, oh no, I don't need that. And then she tried to give me $20. Just trying to get me. That's all I'm trying to do. And I think that if everybody just pitches in, quits complaining. If you're gonna complain, make a complaint. If you wanna complain, between $275 and $250 all the way up to $750. And you wanna complain. Then that'll pay for the new ordinances, it'll pay for the people who put the gloves on and go out and tell that. Instead of making that person feel like they've been dragged down and have their dignity torn away. And then they're like, oh, well, my neighbor's hate me. Oh, well, now they're sitting there thinking, oh, well, my neighbor's against me. So, well, I don't know what my neighbor's thinking. I don't know if he's gonna one day get pop off and I'm walking outside, walking my dog down the street, and boom, I get shot. All because I complained on my neighbor.
Thank you. I think it's been a common thread we've heard throughout this is, everybody wants to be neighborly and get along with each other. So thank you. Alana?
Correct me if I'm wrong, this is 48, as of right now, what it does is 48 hours, but if they come up and knock, before there ever is any type of ticket issue, you have 24 hours to move it, correct?
That's correct. If an officer makes contact off of a complaint, there's 24 hours in order to rectify that situation before there's any citation issued. If an officer does not make contact, it's written as a 72-hour window before a citation would be issued. And that's in the current wording.
Even if you did that 48 hours, someone is complaining about it, you are making contact, and then you still have another 24 hours before there is another contact of.
Before,
Possibility of another, or possibility of a ticket.
that's correct. Yes, that's correct.
So we could reduce police funding and make it. I like what-
I don't know that that's been necessarily up for discussion. So other discussion? Yes.
So I would just like to thank everyone that was able to come out today or tune in via the YouTube page and voice your opinions. We all thank you and look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.
Any other discussion from council? Do I have any amendments to the current?
And I think everybody knows kind of where I stand on this. I mean, I'm completely fine with, the idea that some of these basic things are put in place, but I think that and I believe it was that gentleman who's standing right there with the cute little girl. And I think that there was a couple ladies in the back that they did make the concern about the complaint driven piece. So if you have a neighbor who's out to get you, or, you know, whatever that emotional reaction might be, that will they be the target? And I don't think that we should take that discussion lightly, because I think that that is a very serious thing, because that is initially how all these people are sitting in this room anyways, and why this got brought up in the first place. So I do think that if we're going to amend something and we're not, I mean, granted, I don't think that all of us are going to agree, and that's fine. But what I'm hearing a lot of people saying is that the 48-hour piece isn't working. So if everyone is still voting and saying, yes, we want to proceed forward, I think that the 48-hour piece needs to be addressed from what I'm hearing from everybody. I mean, I hear what you all are saying. I agree with the fact that, yes, you can't enforce something that's not on the books. I get that. Totally get that piece. But I do still have concern with the enforcement piece.
So would you like to propose an amendment?
I would.
Okay.
I would like to propose that, honestly, I would like to propose, I mean, I think everybody's ideas are fabulous, because I think everybody's opinions are valid, but I would at least like to propose the amendment. I mean, if we're gonna keep it, then I think that we need to address the 48 hours. Because I think that what I've heard everybody say is everybody wants to keep it. Correct?
I personally, with the 48 hours, believe it's probably a lot to ask of people working throughout the week. So at the 48 hours, I will oppose this in the current form. I think that if we did the exemption from May to September, that opens up the enforcement, that takes away the potential neighbors complaining about this. And I think that opens up for us all to utilize the great outdoors. So
So what you're saying is getting rid of the 48 hours. So getting rid of, what you're saying is getting rid of the 48-hour thing during the summer, or what you guys are both saying, getting rid of that 48 hours just during the summer, but then adding it in the winter?
that was the,
Like people like need it for like their whatever, like snow huts,
Mhm.
whatever. So just in the winter 48, but during the summer where 90% of the population in their campers keeping it in the summer.
that was the original proposal. But that would require an amendment from council. So that's not currently the way it reads. Currently, it reads the 48 on, 48 off.
I do have a question. I know the chiefs are looking at me.
Uh-oh.
Yes, I've got questions. But I do have a question because I'm not a hunter. But I am wondering whether that and that is why I said I'm not a hunter, so I don't know. I feel like I should be out of that part. Just question, because I don't know.
And I think there would be issues come up with hunting. Certain people go often, probably not as much as we see with the summer camping, is my guess. Sorry. I do believe that hunting could be an issue for some people, but I don't believe that's quite as widespread as the people camping weekend after weekend myself.
So Chief
Chief.
Thompson and I were back listening to all of this, and from a public safety standpoint, the majority, in my opinion, the majority of it should probably stay as far as fire hydrants, where you're blah, blah, blah. We were talking in the back, and correct me if, these guys will correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to us like if we had the exemption from May 15th, and we were talking through October 31st, because that covers most of the hunting season. Not all, but most. If you just let people park their campers on the street from May 15th to October 31st, I think a lot of this would know that. And that's, from everything we're hearing in the back, just listening to everybody, the people that have talked to us outside of the council meetings, for a public safety standpoint, in the wintertime, I do think we need something on the books that campers are not around all the time because of snow removal, snowstorms, the fire trucks trying to get down our narrow streets that we have, especially in the wintertime. I do think that's an issue for a public safety standpoint and us responding to calls. But in the summertime, I just let people park their campers on the street in the summertime.
Chief Wilson, if, you know, we amend it for the May 15th to the October 31st. Working with Chief Thompson, is the 48 hours, consecutive hours, is that gonna be too much, or is it gonna be something that, you know, and you guys are the ones driving in the winter times, so that's what.
I don't think you, in the wintertime, I think there needs to be something around, especially when we're getting into snowstorms, or worse, having snow removal problems already on our narrow streets, and if we have a bunch of campers parked on the street, it makes it that much worse for snow removal. Our fire engines are not small pieces of equipment, we have very narrow streets, the majority of our structure fires come in the wintertime. So, I don't know what a good time limit in the wintertime is, I do think there should be restrictions in the wintertime, but the summertime, I don't know. And I would have to think about it more. I would have to think about it more as far as restrictions for the wintertime, but there could be some serious response issues if we have campers stuck all over the town in the wintertime.
I have a quick question. Is it, for the chief of police, is he the one able to declare snow day?
Either one.
Okay, because I would like to just support these two guys, and that's, and say, okay, if it's seeing weather, and I get weather after 20 minutes, but, I would even be willing to support that if there's a social media post or a post from one of the chiefs saying, okay, we're gonna declare snow day Thursday with 48 hours time. I gotta support my community and have them back as well, just in the name of safety.
And we had to do that 2 marches ago.
2 marches, but
Mhm.
when you declare.
2 marches ago, Jim and I talked about in the middle of that storm.
As long as that's checked and you guys do not abuse that, and you have good reasons with that, I would totally support that as a citizen, and say, allow them to use emergency or the greater to declare snow day and have
I mean, like, I've been a chief for 15 years, 16 years, and we've only ever declared 2 storms.
but I would enable you to get with that.
One thing I'm gonna opinion on before you swallow. I own trailers myself. I don't keep them in town. I don't have anywhere to park them, nor do I want them in town where I live. That said, for the trailer people, one thing that, and Janelle can attest as the town clerk and Robert, we take trash. If somebody misses their trash being picked up in the town, we phone calls people. A ton. And I heard the stability of that. And when you actually read this, you see there's trying to build this stability in here for the community to work together, but unfortunately, everybody here can be civil. But I can attest to you, working law enforcement, Leo can attest from law enforcement and fire, that's not society. Unfortunately, that's why rules or ordinances and laws are created. So, like line 5 talks about not obstructing garbage. Should we have to put that language in there? I don't think so, but unfortunately, we have to. So, in viewing this, my suggestion is proposing an amendment, as Chief Austin talked about, to keep the discussion going, because just because it's passed first reading tonight does not make it the ordinance. There's 2 more readings, so that gives you, like Tanya, how many times have you come to this meeting? You've been here, you've listened, put some stuff forward. And Phil, how many times have you been here? So You've been here a couple times. So somebody, Steve, this is your first time here on this discussion, is it not?
Yes.
In public. So there's two more opportunities for you as the public to consider this and why it's here. Talk to your neighbors and understand that Tanya Street, the people on that street are gonna have a different view than the people on your street, and the people on your street, and the people on your street. So these ordinances come into play to help keep stability within the community. So like, a discussion came about two campers being parked across from each other. So if you read this, you'll see, hey, we're gonna show up, if a complaint comes in, or we, if officers see that, say, yes, it's a safety issue, it's a courtesy issue, that, hey, we're gonna talk to you, if it's your trailer, we're gonna talk to you, and whoever's there first, if you guys can't agree to move a trailer amongst yourselves, then obviously we're gonna step in. So we're trying to give you, the community, that opportunity to work with each other. Really. So that is our proposed suggestion for you as an amendment.
Thank you.
Questions?
Real quick. If you do the May 15th to October 31st, you can park the trailer on there. Okay, why not just take the other months and say you can't park there? And then it's really simple, you can, or you can't. I understand, there's gonna be one or two exceptions no matter what you do.
So
But is all I'm saying is, from an enforcement standpoint and a safety standpoint is you, if from May 15th to October 31st, or whatever day you pick, if that's the day, during that time, you can safely park yours, or RV, or boat, or whatever. The other months, it needs to be in storage or office.
So this is some of where the 48-hour thing came from in the discussion, because some people have trailers beyond campers. Why? And some people, they go camping in December. I don't, but they do. So it still allows for people who want to do that to still have the loading and unloading. But like a snow emergency, let me tell you, if you declare a snow emergency, imagine trying to hook up a bunch of trailers with a foot snow in there. So the idea is that you, correct, because you plowed in, so the idea is in the winter months, when roads are icy, they're kind of, deal with on roads, so you still have the opportunity to have your trailer around, but it's just more limited, because there's some people in this community, yes, there's a lot of voices in here that I hate go away, but there's still plenty of people out there that came and talked to us and said, hey, we don't want it to just go away. So we're trying to find a problem.
But here's the problem, and I understand, some people have other times, and you know what, someplace along the line, we all have to make sacrifices. Okay? Well, I understand that, but now you know it's October 31st, and you've got to make other arrangements. Just a second. But here's the problem. There's a trailer that's been parked on 6th Street now for really close to 6 weeks. Okay? You guys did make them turn it around, but it's still there. Okay? So in the wintertime, if that same turkey is out there and he doesn't move his trailer, and you declare a snow day on 6th Street and jams a lot of traffic, you've got a trailer sitting there, and there's a boat that's been sitting there the same amount of time. He did move it for a day or two. He must have voted on something that day. But anyway, so those two vehicles are sitting pretty close to side by side, and have been there since July 13th, probably days after. Somebody probably knows that now better than I do. But, so what good does it do for snow removal, for fire trucks moving around and whatnot, if those trailers are so?
If you read through this, you also understand that there's a provision here. If you have two trailers, you can't just park them that.
No, I
You have to
understand.
have it. That's not my point. But I'm trying to answer your question. So to help address this stuff in the winter months, you can't, unless you get permission from your neighbors. I know that came up tonight about, hey, talk to your neighbor, right? So the way it's worded, it has to be in front of your house. So you can't just park your second trailer anywhere in town without permission from somebody else. 48 hours, so yes, they're exempt with a few provisions from, say, May 15th to October. And again, 2 more readings on this ordinance can come out. So give everybody a chance to think about discussions, what's been said, but it also makes people have to move their trailers. So they're not sitting there all winter long. Because there's one on Missouri Street that's been there a while. Nobody's complaining on it. It's there. But this makes them move them at least through that time frame, because that also helps show if there's problems and not problems. We can what if, and we can what if, but again, it comes down to a lot of officer discretion. And like Councilman Scott talked about, when you call the dispatch center, so like, okay, I'm gonna sidetrack some wrecks. Every time we, as chiefs, have our people respond to a wreck, we not only have to do, my department has to do a Stillman report and the report being, which is state mandated. The state mandated version of it creates traffic data. So I can get a map in 4 years, we have 1 trailer with an accident. So you think about all the trailers in town. So statistically, we only have 1 trailer. So when, coming back to reporting, that's why I keep telling everybody to report it to the dispatch, because then the case is created. Those cases, when they're created, also help identify if there's one person continually calling in harassing somebody. Because if they call and we show up on a complaint-based driven, it's like, okay, Cal this time, the next time, not so much. So it helps identify whether it's somebody's being targeted or not. That's when cookies. Right, and cookies. So there has to be something in place. It's the only way the entire community is going to get along. And Evansville, for the most part, is a pretty phenomenal community. Like, compared to other communities in the Turner County, this is a place to be. So it's not in the United States. In the state of Wyoming, understand it's statistically driven. Okay, so there's it's per capita. So there's 3,000 residents. Okay, to take Thermopolis, Wyoming. Thermopolis, Wyoming is just shy of 3,000 residents. They have 7 officers, and they do maybe 2,000 calls a year. So when you take 2,000 calls a year, divide that by 3,000, it's a different ratio in crime statistics. Now, Thermopolis, Wyoming doesn't sit next to Casper, Mills, Barnum, and have 90,000 people plus I-25 coming through here. So for our community, we're unique because nowhere in the state of Wyoming, Chief Nelson answered this as well, does a town with 3,000 people have a full-time fire department. Douglas is 6,000 people, they don't have full-time fire departments. So statistically, because in the world of statistics, we, police department, have to report what we call UCRs, now changing the NIGRs, to the FBI. The FBI takes these statistics and they look at the population. So when I report that we had 7,500 calls by traffic stops, et cetera, for our community, statistically it shows that we are a high crime community. Because if you took
They're out doing their job. 2 miles an hour.
Nobody stops anybody from doing 2 miles an hour on the police department. So yes, statistically it shows it, but the reality is we're a pretty safe community. But we have tons of people that come off the transits, come off the interstate. They get dumped off Flying J, they wander over. They create problems. We have self-help. Some of those people check in motels, and then we have domestic and drug situations you can get called to. We have people going through parking lots that come on in because you're staying there and you're staying there, and while you're sleeping soundly, they're walking through checking your doors. That's why we got the Prowler ordinance put in place to help deter, so we protect your property. So coming back to the trailer ordinance, I think it's a reasonable thing for the entire community in our proposal.
So I have a question for you, on
Yes,
your
ma'am.
current proposal. So your current proposal, what goes on as far as the complaint-driven process? Is null and void during that time?
So the complaint-driven process ideally is, unless it's a emergency, which is 911, you call the non-emergent number. So if you're looking for a civil standby, or, you know, you got a dog run, or something that's non-emergent, which typically you would say is common sense, but I can tell you, there's people out there call 911 for things that you're like, seriously, it's not emergency. But you call the non-emergent number, a dispatcher, they typically have 3 working, covering the entire county, answers the phone. And they say, okay, the Trump County Dispatch, you know, what can we help you with? So in short, they take your information. Why are you calling us is the questions they ask. Say, hey, I have a complaint about this. So we get parking complaints. Sometimes, like when school's in session, people call and complain that, because the school has it marked, there's no parking. How many of you are driven by the school and you see that there's clearly no parking areas? I'm telling you, even though it's clearly marked, people still pull in there. Well, if I got a guy at Hat 6 dealing with a bar fight, and I got a guy over here working an accident, we're not able to necessarily patrol there, because we only typically have 2 officers per shift for the entire community. So until the community communicates that there's an issue in certain areas, we can't always see everything. You know, and I've heard comments about, oh, you know, like hands-free and enforcement. We enforce it. We do between 12 and 50 some stops for hands-free alone in our community. But like speeding has been on the books for every community since horse buggies and cars merged. That's where traffic enforcement came from, is society and technology have evolved. And some people have this mindset that it's for revenue. It's not about revenue. Citations were in lieu of people going to jail, because every time we arrest somebody and take them to jail for any offense, we get billed by the sheriff's office. It's currently $137 for a 24-hour period. So as a taxpayer, do you want to pay $137 for somebody to go to jail for every offense? So citations for traffic and hands-free is not about revenue to town. It's simply like, hey, there's an infraction, and in lieu of going to jail and being processed in, pay the infraction fine. So that's where a lot of this comes from. It's just simply about trying to keep people with rules to get along in society. And people still speed. They're posted all over town. We do 350 average per month traffic stops. Last year alone, our department did 215 more calls than the entire Mills Police Department, which is a 15-man agency. So we outwork them for you to keep you safe here.
So Chief Thompson?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm gonna ask this one more time, because I really not understanding.
Okay.
So what happens during your proposed time that there's still a camper on the street? So you're telling me I can go get my camper on whatever date you said and leave it there on the
Okay.
street?
So within the ordinance,
Correct.
there's, as long as it meets the criteria, so if you're not blocking fire hydrants, you're not blocking intersections, because there's actually, so YDOT controls a whole lot of these intersections. Some people think it's like community to live in, but as long as you're falling within the guides here, if somebody calls a complaint, an officer shows up, and you're not in violation of anything else in here, have a nice day. We're not gonna mess with the trailers, unless it's a safety issue, or it's some other, you know, if you're obstructing Robert's guys from picking up garbage, and then somebody calling like, my garbage got missed because this trailer, you know, as long as you're not falling with this, we're not gonna mess with anybody. It's pretty simple. If there's something in here, so if you call or somebody calls on a trailer at your place, and if we get there and the complaint is that, you know, they're blocking the intersection, so like, what's the big one, Whipshaw and stuff, a lot of people complain about that particular area. So the idea is, get the distance out there, so if it's within the distance, we're gonna show up to Shane's house, because once we run the registration, and hopefully he's got his registration current, because if it isn't, we're gonna be knocking on a lot of doors. So if he just moved to Evansville and his former address is in Casper, but now he lives there and he didn't update it, we could knock on every door on the street. You know how much time that takes? So hopefully he answers it, and we're gonna say, hey, just so you know, here's the ordinance. We're educating you, please move it. You have it 24 hours. And if you move it 24 hours, have a nice day. We're not coming back. That's kind of the baseline of it, if that answers the question. Yes, ma'am. And I honestly, that's a valid question. And it's not something I've considered. That's a, Robert, and that's why y'all are in here to talk with your elected people, because I got asked to draft. How many in here have ever drafted a state ordinance or town ordinance? Anybody ever drafted one? It's not easy, let me tell you. And as much as we try to find that middle ground, that's why we're having the discussion. So you brought up a valid point, and I think after tonight, if they make an amendment, we have 2 more readings to have and try to find that solution to maybe work that. That's why we're here, to have these civil conversations.
Keisha, I think to answer your question, in the summertime, the 15th October 31st, hopefully that's slowly going. As long as the campers park legally in front of the house and not violating and they can't be parked anytime, anything. Not regulating it. They're not really- they're not doing that. You can park your camper on the street as long as it's legally parked in front of you.
Because
Well, that's what I was addressing, was snow removal and fire trucks and all those things. But if you have a snow, like, the winter time, it's just snow day. You gotta have a snow day.
we're trying, because believe it or not, there's other people in the community who don't necessarily want a bunch of trailers around the community. So trying to find the middle ground so that everybody has a compromise. So the people that have trailers have, because the primary usage is from these time. Now, some communities went into November, doesn't always work because we have a lot of snow and wind. So we're trying to find the middle ground compromise. That's what we're trying to get. So that everybody's like, okay, although the trailer people are like, yeah, we want it to go away. But I had one lady come in, and let me tell you, I had a half-hour conversation. She don't want trailers anywhere because she thinks that it's trashy and referred to 3 streets in the town looking worse than city limits. That's her opinion. I know other people have similar opinions. So there's people in this room that don't necessarily like this concept, but these guys and us, let me tell you, any decision they make, we make. Like, no, it's not that we have to live with it. It's that you may be happy with it, but she isn't. Or she's happy with it, and he isn't. You can't please everybody all the time. So we're trying to help you guys find what works for you, what works for you, so that we can all live happily together.
And that's what I'm saying, like, doing everything that you're saying, the way that you're around, what goes to it, what goes to it, what is enforcement. It's easy, it's enforcement. Yes.
It is. So, but again, we have, it's been a long night. We have 2 more council meetings for considerations. I think at this point, these guys need to finish their discussions, talk about amendments, and don't necessarily be upset with them as any amendments that they put forward. Think about the amendments, think about the community, yourselves, and the other people, and come back and say, it's like Tanya brought up a valid point about where do we put these things? What's reasonable? And heated discussions never really solve the problems, but have some time to think about it, because you might come up with some, like, hey, I want to propose that this, and yes, they make this, let's say they take the proposal and say, let's do it from this time to this time, and exempt the 48-hour. But maybe after everybody sits down, thinks about it, and reads about it, maybe something else will come about. Finding the solution is communication. Is that reasonable? Okay.
Thank you, Chiefs.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
Thank you, Chiefs. We've been kind of, I can see where everybody's coming at, but I understand that, yes, in the summertime, there's not going to be kind of, my question on that is, right now, as we heard earlier, Chief Thompson drove around about a month ago, there's only about 12 campers out, or 12 trailers out. We don't put any kind of limitations to it. Like, again, like common sense. My common sense is totally different than other people's common sense. So I have a camper also. I would love to be able to park it on the street all the time. Okay? But I don't. There's some people that are out there that, you know, just because you can do it, they're gonna do it. And that's why it might not be, this ordinance that we're proposing isn't directed towards just one or two people or even the 20 people that are in here that are consistently coming to these meetings. As we've been saying, we need more people to come to these meetings other than the consistent 20 that has been fighting for this ordinance. And that's why we've listened to you guys and we've tried to compromise as much. That's why we got rid of the 3 days. And we're working on making it to where, like the mayor said, going from 7 days in a month to about 15 days in a month that you can have it parked on the street. With that 12 campers that are parked on the street now, it's going to turn into quite a few more campers later on down the road. And then we're going to have a lot more complaints. Then we're going to have a lot more problems that we're going to deal with. And we're going to be right back here again, trying to amend the ordinance again, saying, well, now that didn't work. And that's the reason why, you know, the ordinance that we're proposing, the 48 hours, is that gives everybody an accountability to move their camper. Gives them a couple days to load, pack it up, a couple days to go camping, and then a couple days to unload. Okay? If it's a complaint-driven, officer discretion situation, you might have that extra day. I can't give you permission because it's going to be on the ordinance that says you have 48 hours, but that's going to be up to the officer that, you know, is called over to your house. So that is the reason why I can see where everybody just wants it off the books, because then it's so much easier to say, hey, you know what, from this time to this time I can have it out there. But everybody that wants to go camping, that has a camper, is going to be now, oh, well, now I can do whatever I want. Now I'm going to have my camper out there all the time, and we're going to have so many campers on the roads that common sense is going to be out the door. And again, this is my, you know, that's my opinion, and that's kind of where I'm standing at right now. And that's kind of where I'm at.
I respect your opinion, sir. Great.
Any other discussion? Are there any proposed amendments?
I'm looking at the chiefs again back there. So I mean, I at least like what they have proposed. The May to the October. And then I know that we were all discussing some specifics, because I hear what you're saying, and I know where your stance is as well. And so if we did the May 15th to the October 31st, and then potentially came to a compromise of what was it, the 24/72/24? Is that what you were writing down?
Yes, just for the winter time, because in the winter time I don't, you know, if we're gonna limit it, you know, and because there's a couple different options we can go to. We can either, you know, have it all the way through the year, or we can stop it. So if we're gonna propose that, that's what I was gonna, you know, suggest, possibly a 24/72, 24, where, I mean, it cuts it down, but it keeps the trailers off the streets more in the wintertime.
And then I heard the chief saying that if we could just have everybody put their stuff away in the winter, that would make life simple. Is that what I heard what you saying? And that's where you're coming from, is having the time, correct?
The shorter time
The
period, yes.
shorter time.
So am I hearing a motion from Councilman Machado to bring back an exemption of the trailers on the streets from May 15th through October 31st, and altering the winter times to 24 hours on the street, 72 hours off. Is that what I'm hearing?
I would say just do it from May 1st to October 31st. I think. Complete 6 months on both days.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so Councilwoman Machado, do I hear a motion to exempt trailers on the street from May 1st to October 31st and alter the wording outside of that to times trailers may be on the street was 24 hours, 72 hours off? Is that correct?
Correct.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second that one.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. To get that right?
Need a motion for you to amend it, a motion to approve it as amended after.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the trailer ordinance as amended on first reading?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. All right. Public comments. Do we have any other public comments this evening? Other public comments this evening? Yes, ma'am.
I do, just more about the dog thing, where we have left Metro before, and then getting back in there. If we do need Metro again, and if something happens where she doesn't actually own the building, that's my concern of, she doesn't own it. Maybe this guy, yes, we have a great relationship right now, but something happens in 6 months and she's like, screw this guy. Like, it's not working out, it's not that, and then we are touching tail and trying to go back to Metro. They might not let us back in. That's my concern of just like waiting until like that year mark where she actually owns the building, then I can see a lot more going into it that way of just keeping it safe, because if we go away from Metro, I don't know if we're gonna get back in, kind of a thing. Like, there's already that issue of them trying to get us in a reasonable amount of what they were charging us this time around. Can you imagine trying to get back in if something did happen, unfortunately? Like, I love the fact that she is bringing another rescue and more spaying and neuters. I'm huge into that kind of stuff. That's my only concern is if we do that, which would be awesome, because I would love to get away from Metro, but that fact of if something even happens on this guy's end of like, yeah, I no longer at the end of this year lease of, yeah, I don't want to rent to you anymore, I don't want to lease to you anymore, we're done, then she's got to walk away, and so do we. Like, that doesn't sound like a very great way, even though I love the concept. I don't like the risk factor of having to go and then we not having an animal shelter at all, and then we're right back to where we were a couple months ago, scrambling, trying to figure out what we're going to do with our animals. That was the only thing.
Thank you.
I love the idea.
Any other public comments? Yes, ma'am.
I have a 3-year lease with the option so if I have the option to lease it for 3 years or purchase it anytime.
So originally you'd mentioned you had a 1-year lease. So is it a 1-year lease with 3-year option? Okay. All right. Do we have any other public comments this evening? Any other public comments? All right. Meeting adjourned at 9:10.
I second.
Oh, sorry. I have a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Meeting's over.
Okay.